Logic, the framework through which we separate truth from illusion, reason from chaos. But logic itself has not always been what it is today. It has evolved. From primitive instinct to structured rationality, from the rigid binaries of true and false into a more fluid, non-binary awareness that reflects the complexity of reality itself. On this video about the evolution of logic, we start here with our foundation, Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. Because if logic is the skeleton of thought, Kant's work is one of its greatest dissections, and perhaps its rebirth. The birth of binary logic. Before philosophy, there was survival. Early humans didn't ponder metaphysics. They simply decided, is it safe or not? Is it edible or poisonous? This primal decision-making was the seed of logic. A simple yes or no, life or death. Binary logic was born out of necessity. It was nature's way of coding reality into manageable choices. Centuries later, this instinct crystallized into formal logic. The Greeks, particularly Aristotle, transformed human thought by introducing the law of non-contradiction. A thing cannot both be and not be in the same respect. It sounds simple, but this idea reshaped civilization. Aristotle gave structure to the mind's raw intuitions, defining logic as the science of correct reasoning. Every argument, every syllogism, every conclusion was a product of this binary structure. If something was not true, it was false. If something existed, it could not, at the same time, not exist. This framework became the foundation for centuries of Western philosophy, mathematics, and even religion. The world was split in two, light and dark, good and evil, true and false. And for a while, this binary view was enough. But as human consciousness evolved, as we began to question not just what we know, but how we know it, cracks began to form in the walls of logic's perfect symmetry. Kant and the awakening of mind. The philosopher Immanuel Kant introduced the Critique of Pure Reason in 1781, a book that did not merely add to philosophy, it split it open. Kant asked a question that changed everything. How is knowledge possible? Logic, for Kant, was not a mirror reflecting reality, but a lens shaping it. Our minds, he said, are not passive observers but active participants in the construction of experience. We do not see the world as it is, but as it appears to us, filtered through the categories of the mind: space, time, causality, unity, plurality, and more. In Kant's framework, logic was no longer just about external truths. It became an exploration of the conditions of thought itself. He showed that reason has limits, that pure, unrestrained logic, when pushed too far, collapses into paradox. Think of his notion of antinomies, where two equally logical conclusions contradict one another. For example, the universe must have a beginning. The universe must be infinite. Both statements are logically coherent, yet both cannot be true in the same sense. Kant called this the tragedy of pure reason, the point where binary logic fails to grasp the infinite complexity of existence. He exposed the blind spot in logic itself, that it assumes reality can be captured by categories created by the mind. And that assumption, he argued, can never be proven, only experienced. The crumbling of binary thought. From Kant onward, philosophy began to shift. The sharp edges of binary logic started to blur. Hegel, who came after Kant, described reality as a dialectic, a living, unfolding process where contradictions don't destroy truth, but generate it. To Hegel, the world was not divided between A and not A. It was a dance between them. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Every contradiction was a bridge toward a higher understanding. Logic, once static, became dynamic. And this shift echoed beyond philosophy. In the 20th century, mathematics discovered forms of logic that were non-binary: fuzzy logic, quantum logic, modal logic, systems that accepted uncertainty as fundamental. In quantum mechanics, for example, something can be both true and false, existing and not existing, until observed. Logic was no longer about absolutes. It became a language for complexity, probability, and ambiguity. This transformation mirrors our own evolution as thinkers. We no longer live in a world defined by rigid dichotomies. Morality, identity, truth itself, all exist in spectrums. We are slowly learning that to understand reality, we must transcend the binary mind that once kept us safe, but now limits our vision. The future of logic. We stand now at the edge of a new kind of reasoning. Artificial intelligence, neuroscience, and systems theory are all pointing toward a future where logic isn't fixed, but adaptive. This sort of flexibility grants logic a wider audience for it to appeal to. This is exemplified by the multitude of systems that logic has to offer, from Aristotelian to higher-order logics and mathematical logic. These nuances can be used to test whether the subject in question is operating from within the environmental parameters, the conditions that enables it to exist, or whether it's functioning from an area of its conceptual containment, meaning that the concept is dry and hollow, since it's described in a way that is not functional and cannot be pragmatic. It exists solely on the mind, that is, the con of using binary modes to describe life in its totality. Perhaps the next evolution of logic is not to choose between true and false, but to understand the space between them, the continuum of becoming, where truth is not an endpoint but a process. This is a difficult challenge for us, since statements such as humans are rational could operate conceptually and abstractly well, but dissolve under further empirical scrutiny. A living logic, one that's possessed by beings that are enriched with souls, would revise their modalities of thought based on new conflicting evidence, thus escaping self-referential loops and conceptual containments that Kant has described in his book, under the term of analytical knowledge. We should strive to escape from our bubble of synthetic forms of knowledge that only deprive us from the sensibilities of the knowledge we try to deliver. Using binary reasoning to describe life leads to the illusion of clarity at the cost of depth. We are essentially muddying the purity of the purpose behind logic if we were to use it in that manner. It's the death of logic when it's excluded from the dynamic nature of existence. In that sense, Kant's insight remains prophetic. He showed that logic is not external to us, it is us. Our limitations, our structures, our way of organizing the infinite chaos of the world into something intelligible. And as we evolve, so too does the logic that guides us. So perhaps the story of logic was never about reaching the perfect system, but about learning to listen to the movement of thought itself. We began with Aristotle's categories, building clean walls around chaos. Then came Kant, who showed us that those walls are drawn from the very shape of our own minds. And now, standing before the age of machines that think, we must ask, can logic still serve us if it cannot feel us? The next chapter of logic will not be written in textbooks or algorithms, but in how we, as conscious beings, decide to balance precision with perception.